Disclaimer: I am not a game developer, designer, programmer, or creator. I am not a professional by any means. I am just someone who likes horror games and enjoys analyzing the things that I like. Also, this video contains scenes that some may not find suitable, potential seizure warnings, and spoilers for Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Hello, my name is Taster256, and welcome to the Search for the Perfect Horror Game, a series where I study and analyze horror games in a quest to find the quote-unquote perfect horror game. Along that quest, I will look at horror games and see what they do right and what they do wrong in terms of horror. In this video, I will be focusing on Amnesia: The Dark Descent and how it uses helplessness to create fear and dread in the player. Amnesia: The Dark Descent was created by Frictional Games and was released on September 8, 2010. In it, you play as a man awaking in a dark castle, and you have, stay with me here, amnesia. Shocking, I know. You react, as I feel most people would when waking up in a strange dark castle with no memory of how they got there or who they even are, with fear and confusion. You wander about the castle, looking for a way out, collecting tinderboxes, and finding info along the way of who and where you are. However, you also learn that you are not alone. With you in the castle is something. A monster of some sort. A note you find warns you that you can't fight it, and your only chance at living is to run and hide. The note also warns you that the monster seems to always be able to follow you, so you should always be careful of your surroundings. As you explore the castle and get a better understanding of the situation you're in, you'll notice this weird fleshy stuff forming around the castle, almost like a growth of mycelium. It hurts you if you touch it, so watch out. Otherwise, it doesn't move, it just stands there menacingly. The goal of the game is simply to get out, a task which may seem simple at first, but actually ends up being quite difficult. Not only is the main entrance, which is seemingly your only way out, stuck shut, the castle you are stuck in also seems to be hellbent on killing you, as there are inconveniences every step of the way. Some more dangerous than others. But that's not a problem, as you can work past these issues and solve them, while being chased by monsters, because we all work best under pressure. That makes up a majority of the gameplay loop, solving puzzles and hiding from monsters while trying not to go insane. And one of the things which helped make this game stand out was how helpless you are against the things around the castle, so I decided that is what I will make this video on. As previously mentioned, in Amnesia, it is told to you pretty early on that there is no conceivable way to fight the creature, which is called a grunt by the way. The note which tells you this also tells you that it seems to always be able to follow you wherever you go. This note does two things right off the bat. One, it tells the player how to deal with an interaction with a grunt, and the way it tells them how to deal with it is very passive. Instead of facing it head on or trying to throw rocks or circular saws at it, the game straight up says to run and hide, telling the player to be scared and hide away. This causes a sense of discomfort in the player by taking away their sense of control in the situation, especially when applied with the second piece of information given, which is that the grunt is always near, always being able to go wherever the player goes. This can lead to the player feeling as though they are being watched, although that's just an added terror, which is not its main goal. Its main goal is to get the player to always be on edge, and to always be prepared for an attack out of nowhere. As you hide, you will realize two things as well, and those are that most hiding spots limit your vision, and that they also corner you. This makes you feel vulnerable, even though you are safe. Mostly. But it doesn't stop there. The game tells you that crouching in the darkness is a good way to hide, and while I question the validity of that in other games and in real life, in Amnesia, that works quite well, but it works in direct conflict with the game's main mechanic, sanity. The sanity mechanic works as such. The character you play as has a weak mind, which can easily succumb to any discomfort in the environment. The main thing included in this is the darkness surrounding you, which persists throughout the castle. As the sanity goes down, vision starts to get blurry and you will hear things that aren't even there. The camera will move slower, actions will be delayed, and doing even the simplest of things becomes difficult. If it is left to get worse, eventually this will happen. And if you're playing on hard mode, you will die at this point. Sanity can be regained by one of three methods. 1. Get away from whatever is causing distress if there is a clear source. 2. Solving puzzles and progressing further through the game can give a slow improvement of sanity. 3. Get to a light source. This third one is the easiest one to do, as the lanterns you carry can provide light, and the tinderboxes you collect can provide a steady light source that, if uninterrupted, lasts forever. The problem with this is that while being in light brings your sanity up, it also makes you incredibly visible to any monsters in the area. This leads to situations where moving around with monsters about becomes a juggling act of trying to keep your sanity up and not getting caught to keep your health up. I believe the fact that hiding is made both beneficial and problematic in the same situation due to the mechanics, especially since that is often the only way to deal with the monsters, adds a lot to the uneasiness you feel. And it just makes you feel that much more helpless, as the only thing you can do in this dangerous situation is struggle, and if you're not careful, this can lead to your death. And when you do get caught, the game has even more layers to the fear. Within the inventory, you can see along the left side a health meter and a sanity meter. As a health meter implies, you have health. You are not killed in one shot, but rather take multiple hits to die. This means that if you are caught or cornered, you don't die immediately. Rather, you have a chance to escape if you are lucky enough. This adds to the tension, as you know that hiding isn't an end-all to surviving, and if you do get caught, you can still survive. This keeps the player invested in the game until the moment they die, even in hopeless situations, and provides unique situations where the player may have to tank a hit to get by an enemy, and they also have to focus on balancing their health so they don't die. Now, this health mechanic doesn't work in all situations. Some games, such as Five Nights at Freddy's, wouldn't get a benefit to the horror from this, as the horror comes from how mistakes can and will be fatal. Having a health bar would make the game lower maintenance, so the player wouldn't need to put as much effort into the game, since mistakes aren't as bad. This is also beneficial to Amnesia specifically, because the story is the main focus. If you died in one hit, you would focus less on exploring the castle around you, and more on simply beating each area so you could be done with it. Now, this doesn't directly play into the sense of horror one feels, at least at first, but as the game goes on, with more of the story and more of the specifics revealed, the game can build upon its psychological horror, leading to a more long-lasting sense of terror, which can stay with the player much longer than any monster chase or design ever could. Now, story must be done right, or else you run the risk of the story taking away from the horror, leading to either the player not caring about the story, or not being scared. But Amnesia does this well, as in the beginning, where it is really hard to die, the story is the focus, and the game is using that time to set the story up. A bit after that, the game puts the story to the side to focus on the introduction of the monsters and the mechanics they use. There are still parts of the story being told, just as there were hints of the monsters appearing before they actually did, but when they do first appear, the story is made secondary to the gameplay. But after you learn how the monsters work and you prove it by getting the elevator to work, the game ramps up on the story again, providing you with both aspects of the game at once. By introducing both parts separately, the game can get you used to both of them and can make it feel more natural when they are put together eventually. Amnesia: The Dark Descent, created in 2010 by Frictional Games, is a first-person horror game where one must explore their castle environment to escape and find their lost memories. As they go through the castle, being chased by many different monsters, they feel a deep sense of helplessness, built up by the game's mechanics and their inability to fight back against any of the threats. This is one of the oldest mainstream horror games, and much of what the horror genre is in gaming today is because of what this game did. It had some moments which are typical of horror games, and some of the moments were predictable when they shouldn't have been, but I'm cutting the game some slack, as this is the game where most of those tropes originated from. And when it came out, they weren't done-to-death tropes. They were unique, original concepts. And I think the fact that they are still used to this day says something about the quality of this game and the impact it had on the world of horror. Playing through this with the knowledge of what horror games are now, and seeing so many tropes from their source was enjoyable, and added an extra layer of enjoyment to the game as a whole. As for its rating as a horror game, I rate the game 7 out of 10. It did manage to scare me quite a few times, and there was only once or twice where I felt the horror was cheap at all. The story led the game, but it didn't take away from the gameplay, and the gameplay itself was quite enjoyable. There were a few times where the puzzles I had to solve were a bit too vague for my smooth monkey brain, but I only had to look up the answers twice. On top of all of that, the engine the game takes place in is just fun to mess around in. The way you open and close doors works well with the game, and it fits the style of horror well, and having the ability to pick up boxes and hammers made exploring the place and searching for secrets and solutions that much more fun. And there you have it, Amnesia and how it creates helplessness. This game was genuinely such fun to play, and I absolutely recommend it if you haven't played it before, especially if you're new to horror games and want an entry point into the world of horror games. But back to what I was saying, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have anything you would like for me to do different regarding the series, please let me know. I would love to improve this and make it better. On that note, I thank you for watching. Also, if you can get a hold of Alexander of Brandenburg, please let him know that he has a shortage of chairs in his study.